Welcome to the opening line report for week number 2 on the night that week number 1 for Sunday is ending. We still have Monday Night Football, but let's look ahead to week 2 and let's do it with the man who is the best in the business with this stuff, our guy, Patrick Everson, joining us on the opening line report here on Twitter and on YouTube. Patrick, what is going on? How'd Sunday go for everybody?
Well, look, we had football, full NFL slate back. So in that sense, it went great. But if you were a bettor today, particularly if you were a public bettor, and honestly, it was just really continuing a trend that started with Saturday's college football. But if you were a public bettor, you didn't have a really good day, with the possible exception of the Ravens game and this game that just ended. Where I would have sworn, if you told me, I did play Cowboys money line. I did. And I made that public that I played Cowboys money line. And if you would have told me that the Cowboys were going to hold the Bucs to 19 points, I would have felt pretty good about that ticket. But the Bucs were a public side and got there. But boy, this was really a weekend for the books to get out of the gate. So on to week 2 and see if the bettors can do a little better against the odds makers next week.
Yeah, it was a crazy Saturday in college football, followed by that insane 1 o'clock window in the NFL. It's just like I'm sweating just thinking about the last 48 hours we've had of football. So let's look ahead to week 2. Let's get into it here. You've got info for us. We have the Buccaneers, who just wrapped up a win in Dallas, like you were talking about. They are on the road in the Big Easy, taking on the Saints. Earlier in the evening, the Buccaneers were looking at 3-point favorites on the road heading into New Orleans. The over-under was sitting at 48. But has that moved at all since about halfway through Sunday Night Football when I took a look at the Vegas Insider consensus odds page?
Right. And I'm actually taking a peek at, I get a bunch of good information every Sunday night, which is, by the way, this is the maiden Sunday voyage for us on this. And we'll be doing this every Sunday night, opening line report, generally as the Sunday Night Football game ends, trying to get all of you who check it out some insights into the opening numbers and maybe even some early action if some games are seeing some early action. And John Murray at the Superbook, executive director of the Superbook, very, very highly respected odds maker. He provides me a bunch of the information for both this report, this live stream that we do, and also for a report that will be up on Vegas Insider just a little bit later this evening. So if you don't make it that late, it'll be sitting there for you on Monday morning. And I'm just kind of I'm scrolling down here to get to the Bucs Saints game and just see if there's been much of of course not. So the Superbook, and others probably do this as well. I'm not sure everybody does this, but others probably do this as well. When there's a Sunday night game, they'll put up odds for the following week about an hour, maybe an hour and a half before the Sunday night game. But for the two teams involved in the Sunday night game, once that game kicks off, those two teams' subsequent games come off the board and they don't go back up until Monday morning. So, but what I can tell you is they open Bucs 2.5 at the Saints. 48. You mentioned 3. You're seeing some 3s out there, Tom. You got from
I saw some 3s earlier today on the Vegas Insider consensus odds page. So that takes a look at sort of all the books across the board and gives you, hey, this is sort of what the consensus is at the moment. And that was right before kickoff of Sunday night.
Gotcha. And I'm just going to move on, in the on the odds page for Vegas Insider. I'm going to just jump into week 2 here and take a look and see what they've got. I mean, honestly, it looks like most of what's up is 3s, but Superbook, I will tell you, is at 2.5. And again, they took this line down once the game kicked off. I'm not sure that, even though the Saints or whether the Bucs won without too much trouble tonight, I wouldn't say it was an inspired victory. I mean, it was a boring game. There's just not a lot happened there. 19-3. Like I said, if you would have told me pregame, you've got a money line ticket on the Cowboys and the Buccaneers are going to score 19 points. How do you feel? I would have said I felt great. But what John Murray said is, I'm not sure what to make of either team yet. And I'll bet you he still doesn't know this was earlier pregame. I'm sure he doesn't still quite know what to make of the Bucs only scoring 19 points tonight. But he noted that the Saints probably lose badly today if the Falcons don't do what the Falcons always do and take their foot off the gas. He expects they're going to need the Saints here, though, because the public loves Tom Brady. And as I noted at the top there, public bettors probably got there tonight with Tom Brady. But overall, it was not a good day for the public.
Yeah, and, not for nothing, a lot of field goals for Tampa today. And it seemed like Micah Parsons had his way with that beat-up Tampa offensive line. So, yes, the Saints have a really good defense, but do they have a guy like Parsons that can really disrupt scoring opportunities late in these drives, or can Brady go out there and finish? So that's going to be an interesting one. I'm curious to see how that line moves throughout the week, if people are going to look at what happened here in Dallas and say, oh, maybe the Bucs aren't as good, or look and say, oh, wow, the Bucs could have won this thing by a lot more had they not been dealing with a generational talent up against a beat-up offensive line.
All good points, and also just to your point on the spread, like I said, there's at least 1, 2.5 out there, mostly threes, but on those threes, those are shaded to the Saints, like minus $1.20 at a few different books. The Saints are, so given the Saints 3 minus 120 tends to me indicate that this may be going back to 2.5, and that the Superbook is on to something. And again, the Superbook will update on Monday morning. That's just how they handle those games when a team is playing Sunday night. Whatever their subsequent game is comes off the board, goes back the next day. The same thing will happen to the Broncos and the Seahawks tomorrow night. Those two will come off the board, go back up Tuesday morning out in the wake of that game, so they can assess in case there's injuries, or assess based on performance and so forth. But to me, it looks like the way that's shaded to the Saints, they're already kind of showing their hand that they may be heading back to 2.5, because they didn't really think that was a great win tonight. I mean, look, if you go on the road and you win in the NFL, it's generally a good win, but I don't think that was awe-inspiring.
Quick comment from YouTube. Thanks for watching on YouTube. GC says, Patrick, great seeing you at the Mandalay Bay Sportsbook tonight. So there you go. Shout out from GC that. Here on
I ran into a lot of good people today at Mandalay Bay and Superbook and Mirage and South Point. Good stuff. And I'm drinking coffee now because I got a couple hours ahead of me even after this live stream. We got some work to do. We got to finish up some work so that everybody Monday morning when they hop on their computers has all the information they're looking for to get ready for week 2. So I'm drinking a little coffee. But yeah, great day at Mandalay Bay. Fantastic atmosphere at all the books in Vegas. They were packed. I mean, the places were jumping, and the games, a whole lot of games came down to the last minute or went to overtime, so a lot of exciting finishes. So GC, thank you for the shout out. It was great to see you as well.
And thank you for watching on YouTube, youtube.com/VegasInsiderTV. Next game we're going to talk about here, the other team in tonight's Sunday night football matchup. The Bengals are going to be in Dallas. And like I said, before kickoff, and I think this happened probably because of what was going on in Cincinnati today, the Bengals at kickoff of Sunday Night Football were 2.5-point dogs heading into next week's matchup with Dallas. I'm curious to see where that line moves based on what happened in tonight's game, especially with Dak leaving the game with that hand injury. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on here heading into week 2.
Yeah, and I'm sure now with the Dak situation, probably more books have this off the board. And this just kind of illustrates why the Superbook does this. They're just like, okay, you're playing Sunday Night Football. We'll put your lineup for an hour. Your game kicks off. We're going to take it down. You get a potential, I don't want to say serious injury. I don't think it was a serious injury, but it could be an injury that causes him to, that either hinders his performance or keeps him out for a week or two. Who knows? And we probably won't know till tomorrow. So I wouldn't be surprised if other books have this off the board now. But what I am seeing is mostly 2.5s on Vegas Insider's NFL odds page. And what John had to say about this is they opened Cowboys -2, took it down right after the game kicked off. And again, on the odds page for Vegas Insider right now, we're looking at 2.5s. No real action to report. There wasn't really much time for it to be bet into prior to the Sunday night game. But what John noted was it still doesn't seem possible that the Bengals lost today, but all of a sudden they're in scramble mode and could be 0-2 after next Sunday in a division that saw every other team win today. So that's not necessarily an ideal spot for the defending AFC champions to be in. I'm sure it's not the spot they expected to be in. They and Dallas is going to need a win. They're not going to want to get out of the gate 0-2 at home, but one of these two teams is going to be 0-2 next week. So, which is, it's not, you got 17 games. It's a long season, but that's not the way you want to start. And something tells me the Cowboys are going to figure this out a little bit, unless the Prescott injury is worse than feared, and perhaps he has to miss some time or is somehow hindered in his performance, even if he can play.
So I heard this take towards the end of the week, and I know the Steelers have been a team that people have been kind of taking a back seat in the AFC North all off season, although one of your odds and action reports had a lot of public money going on Pittsburgh, so who the hell knows? But, Pittsburgh returned basically most of their roster from the last few years, and that's a team that has made the playoffs all the time in recent memory.
Right.
And the big change for them was Big Ben is no longer their quarterback. So anyone playing quarterback other than Big Ben is an upgrade at this point, right? The guy hasn't looked like himself the last few years. And I know it's Mitch Trubisky, but that's an upgrade. So they came into that game in Cincinnati probably feeling really disrespected and being really underrated. So, I know the Bengals didn't get the W today, but I don't think Pittsburgh is as bad as people are making them out to be. So I see Cincinnati as a team that people can probably take advantage of heading into next week because they're coming off of that loss. I think they're going to destroy Dallas next week from what I saw today.
They well may, and maybe this was more of a wake-up call. And like you said, maybe Pittsburgh's a little better than people think. There's another team we're going to talk about. I don't want to give away everything, but we'll get to that team. But it's another team that John Murray said, hey, this team's better than people think. So, and maybe Pittsburgh is that way as well.
Let's take a look at a matchup in the AFC West. We have the Chargers heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, who are currently 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is at 54. That's going to be on Thursday Night Football, Amazon's debut of Thursday Night Football on that platform. So make sure you guys are squared away on that before it's 7:45 on Thursday night. And you're like, I don't have the Amazon app. Just get it done ahead of time, and then you'll be able to be squared away there. But Chiefs looked incredibly impressive today. I mean, that was a dominant performance in Arizona. Tyreek Hill, and now they are hosting a team that everyone's super high on, the LA Chargers. This is going to be a fun one on Thursday night. I wonder how high that over-under total gets by Thursday. I know Keenan Allen's going to be out, but we'll see.
Yeah, that will be interesting. 54 already. So, and this one's already seen some movement. The Superbook opened the Chiefs -3, and as you alluded to, Tom, the Chiefs had an impressive week one. And so the Superbook quickly moved to 3 -120, and then went to 3.5 after what John said. He said a respected player didn't balk at all at laying the 20 cents at 3. So they moved to -3.5. So he'll see how much of that. He said, we'll see, how much of that is the fault of the Cardinals. Pretty solid matchup for a Thursday game. Should be really big handle. I mean, it's arguably the game of the week coming out of the gate on Thursday. Chargers got to go on a short week and travel. But both teams coming off wins that they're going to need, because the AFC West could be very challenging for teams. I mean, if you can go 4-2 in the AFC West, you might win the division with the quarterback play and some of the talent that's in this division. So, but the early action, sharp play on the Chiefs, and it kind of follows what happened this past week. Last Tuesday, the Chiefs were 4.5 against the Cardinals, and a sharp group hit multiple sports books, including the Superbook. And all of a sudden, everything went from 4.5, straight to 6. And then from there, it went to 6.5. And the Chiefs go in and just blow out the Cardinals. So obviously the sharp side was the right side at that number. I don't think you go in later and try and chase and get the Chiefs at 6.5, even though, yes, you would have won your bet. But the Sharps were on that early in the week and pushed that number up, and clearly they were onto something with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes clearly heard the disrespect this offseason and came out and just absolutely balled. So I wonder if that sort of revenge tour-ish mentality continues on Thursday, I'm going to be looking at the touchdown market for Mahomes ahead of that game. I mean, 5 in Arizona today. That's just beastly. So if you guys are just joining us, this is the opening line report for week 2 of the NFL season. That's right. We're already looking ahead to week 2 because we only got one game left for week 1. That's Monday night in Seattle. We're going to have Russell Wilson returning to play his former team. But we have a full slate of games to look ahead to for week 2. And this is the first place you can go to take a look, get the info from the best man in the business, Patrick Everson. Go ahead, follow him on Twitter at @PatrickE_Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
Sir. You got it.
And you also got to follow us at Vegas Insider. That's an easy one, at Vegas Insider. So thank you guys for watching for tonight. And we're going to continue with the slate here. The next game we're going to talk about is the Cardinals, going to be on the road in Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, who lost to the Chargers today. Raiders are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under for that one is 51.5. But Patrick, let me know, has there been any action here, any line movement in any of the markets? What are we looking at for this AFC West versus NFC West battle?
Right, and it looks like Raiders pretty much 3.5 all over, and I'm looking to see if we've got some any change in the total here. I'm going to pop this onto the again on the Vegas Insider page, but it looks plenty of 50, 51.5, 52, 51. It let's see, 51.5 appears to be. Now there's some 52.5s out there too, so it's crept up a little depending on where you're shopping right now. 51.5, 52, 52.5. So there's a little bit of range there. Perhaps obviously expecting some scoring out there. But what John Murray again at the Superbook had to say about this, they opened 3.5, 52.5. And he just noted, to your point, the Cardinals defense got shredded by Mahomes today at home. And now Arizona has to go on the road and take on a Raiders team that needs to win. I mean, they don't want to get out of the gate 0-2 either. Nobody wants to get out of the gate 0-2. But like I said, that AFC West is so challenging that every game is going to be big. Obviously, the divisional games will be bigger than these, the non-division, non-conference. But they can't be getting out 0-2. But what John noted, he's like, hey, the schedule makers did not do the Cardinals any favors with this start to the season. He said this figures to be a big handle game in the afternoon with us needing the Cardinals. And that's a point. I think we might have made this point last week on our week 1 opening line live stream, is that, other parts of the country, as sports betting expands, regional bias can creep into the sports betting, obviously into the sports betting and the influence of the local teams and so forth. And Vegas has always just been kind of until they got the Knights and now the Raiders, that there wasn't really that was somewhat of a regional bias sometimes to Southern California teams, but it's really grown a lot on the Raiders. And I've heard multiple sports books that have operations in Las Vegas saying, listen, we may be having to go against the Raiders, every week all season long. People are really starting to get enthused. Now that said, bettors, we know how we are. You got to start winning if you want to keep us enthused. So the Raiders are going to have to go out and improve a point this week to keep the bettors on their bandwagon here in Vegas. If they get out 0-2, bettors might peel off pretty quickly.
So the Cardinals, they have their bye in week 13. So before their bye, they have at Vegas, then they play the Rams, then they play, I'm just going to name the difficult matchups. They have the Eagles at home. They have the Saints. They have the Vikings on the road. They play the Rams on the road again, the Niners, and the Chargers in week 12. So not an easy slate to start the season for Arizona. It doesn't get easier after that, too. Patriots, Denver, Tampa, and then they close the season out with the Niners. So brutal schedule for Cliff Kingsbury and the boys.
I agree. That is a very tough schedule. And I think I saw something like, did they lose like their last 5 home games of last season or something like that?
Yeah, they ended the season horribly last year.
Right.
They have a problem with that.
Yeah, and then they lose at home today. I mean, look, there's no shame in losing at home to the Kansas City Chiefs, but still, you're continuing a trend that does not bode well for that team.
Not at all. So let's talk about another game here. A team that surprised a lot of people. Two teams, I'd say, that surprised a lot of people today. Chicago and Green Bay. Chicago getting the upset at home in that monsoon against San Francisco. And Aaron Rodgers and the Packers not looking good in Minnesota to take on the Vikings. But they're 9-point favorites the last time I checked on the Vegas Insider consensus page, with an over-under at 44. I guess the books are saying this was a fluke for Chicago, given that it was a crazy rainstorm, and maybe this was just like a fluky week one thing for Aaron Rodgers. Like, this happened last year, happened again this year. He'll be fine. He dominates Chicago.
Well, maybe a little bit of both of that. And the Superbook opened 9, and I'm just checking my Superbook mobile app right now, and they're still at 9, hasn't moved off of that. And also keep in mind, this is the Sunday night game. It's prime time. Aaron Rodgers at home and coming off a loss. They're certainly going to want to bounce back from that. And they got to hope they're healthy next week, though. Part of the, that line swung a lot against the Vikings this morning, Sunday morning, when the Packers injury news came out. Lazard out, and I think both their left and right tackles were out. Just it got messy for them, and they didn't, and then they did not perform well. 23-7 loss. What John Murray said at the Superbook was the sharp money came in quickly on the under on this, and they knocked the total down a point from 45.5 to 44.5. That was what they saw early on this game. Nothing really on the spread, but he did note all of a sudden this is a really intriguing game to people who aren't Bears or Packers fans. That bettors trying to figure out who to back here. He noted Chicago rallies, stuns the 49ers. And he said the Packers looked like the Packers we saw in week 1 last year. And if I recall correctly, wasn't that when they went, they had to play New Orleans in Jacksonville.
They played New Orleans in Jacksonville,
and they
Charlotte,
got housed. Yeah, and they got trucked. But he said, I still believe Rodgers will be fine. And what he points out, to the point we made a little bit earlier about teams, maybe about Pittsburgh perhaps being better than people think. John said Minnesota is better than people realize. So, they were sold on, behind the counter. They think Minnesota is a decent team. And to that end, in fact, Minnesota drew a bunch, and not just off the injury news to the Packers late, but prior to that injury news today, they were drawing sharp money at the Superbook, and I assume elsewhere, which helped draw that line from Packers down to -2, down to pick. Then the injury news comes out, and obviously goes all the way to Minnesota 2, and so on. There's some sharp bettors who seem to think the Vikings have some value as well. Green Bay losing to Minnesota at Minnesota, especially shorthanded, is not necessarily the loss it might look like on the, at first blush, because as John said, Minnesota's better than people realize. That said, only putting up a touchdown today, injuries or no, that's not what you expect out of an Aaron Rodgers team.
Yeah, it's uncharacteristic. And if anyone watched our NFL Futures Picnic we did at the beginning of August, I believe, a lot of people on the VI roster very high on the Minnesota Vikings. So when I saw them at +1.5 midweek or so, I jumped on that. So I'm going to be kind of tailing the Vikings a lot this season. I think they have an explosive offense, great weapons, and I love O'Connell. I think he's going to be perfect. He's exactly what that team needed. Zimmer was not the right fit for the personnel that they have there. Now they have an offense. They're going to open it up. Justin Jefferson's going to have a monster season. I'm excited to watch the Vikings.
Yeah, well, those at the picnic, and I wasn't on board with Vegas Insider just yet.
You weren't there yet. You weren't there
can I assume? Can I assume picnic was spelled PICK -NIC?
-NIC. Yeah, we had the pick. Gotcha. Get it? Picnic.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's phenomenal, and it's great to hear that you guys were high on the Vikings. And look, +1, you got the Vikings at +1.5. There you go. You were a sharp bettor this week. You were with the sharp side.
Love it. All right, let's hit this game here. We got the Titans at the Bills. Bills currently 9.5-point favorites. The over/under at 49.5. Bills dominated on Thursday night, living up to that Super Bowl favorite hype. Another team that got a lot of love on our picnic here. Titans losing in Nashville in heartbreaking fashion. Randy Bullock took a lot of heat on the internet for missing that field goal there. And the Giants, the darlings of the day, Brian Daboll getting, I believe it was their first week 1 win in like 6 years. They haven't been a good team in a long time. Let's be real. Saquon Barkley looked good. Hooray for the Giants. Titans, they got to clean some stuff up. But Bills, not the team you want to play when you're looking to clean stuff up the following week.
No, I agree. And I'm just double checking Superbook to see. I don't think they've moved off of this at all. And this is, I take that back. 9.5, open 9, already gone to 9.5, which I think is interesting. This is this Monday night. It's not really a double. I guess it's sort of a double header in week 2, but one game starts at 7:15 Eastern. The next game starts at 8:30 Eastern. So
yeah, it's a weird staggered
midway through the second quarter. You're going to have 2 NFL games going on Monday night in week 2. And what John told me was we opened the Bills -9, already seeing more action on the Bills than any other week 2 side. And that's evidenced by, since I talked to John, which was a couple of hours ago, that's evidenced by the Bills going out to 9.5. That's a lot of points. But he said, I expect that action to continue throughout the week, considering the incredible performance from Buffalo this past Thursday against the Rams and the Titans' huge meltdown today at home against the Giants. He said Bills will be in every teaser and moneyline parlay that comes in. And he said, honestly, that's probably something we're going to be dealing with all season long with that Buffalo team. Buffalo is popular in every way. They were popular in week 1. They're popular in the Super Bowl market. They're popular in the AFC Championship market. They're popular in the over on the regular season win totals, the player props, MVP, all those things. The Bills are incredibly popular, and they're off to a popular start with the week 2 odds board too, already moving from 9 to 9.5 on this Sunday evening.
They are loaded, man. Josh Allen, look out. That guy is on a path to win MVP this season. Although if Mahomes has anything to say about it, that's going to be a fun one to go back and forth. I can't wait for them to play this year. All right.
That'll be awesome.
That's going to be amazing. All right, we got the Vikings at Eagles, a team that I thought looked great this week, the Vikings, and a team that maybe didn't look as good as they thought against the Lions. I don't know. Maybe people thought the Eagles would win by more in Detroit than they did. I know Lions backdoor covered, but I don't know. Eagles a little shaky. I mean, Devontae Smith had 0 catches. That's a red flag to me. Although AJ Brown was fantastic, but I don't know. The Eagles were weird to me this week, and they're coming in as a 3-point favorite at the moment. The last time I checked, and the over under is at 49. So this is an interesting one to me. I think I'm going to go and get the Vikings at +3 or 3.5 or whatever the number is. I'm going to go get the Vikings at a plus number here while I can. Patrick, is that available?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely available. Eagles open -3, 48.5 at the Superbook, up a tick on the total already to 49. Still at 3 on the spread, and it's 3 flat. But John said this was a tough game for the risk room today. He said we went back and forth on this one with the room split between Eagles 2.5 and Eagles 3. He felt both teams were impressive. He did note that the Eagles let the Lions back into the game and got the backdoor cover, but he still felt like short of that, the Eagles looked good today, and they obviously liked the way the Vikings looked. And as I noted earlier, John said, Minnesota is better than people realize. What he said was out of the gate, they'd seen a few guys take the +3, -110 with the Vikings. They haven't moved the number, and they're still at 3 flat, -110. But a little bit of the early money coming in on the Vikings. So if you want +3, you might want to get in on that soon. And I'm going to back up here and see what Vegas Insider has, our odds page has on this. Why is this? Let's see. I'm scrolling down, trying to find that game. I apologize.
It's okay. While you look for that, a little breaking news for us to talk about here. And again,
yes, I just got it.
Close look on the lines and everything moving around here overnight. Jerry Jones saying that the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott is going to need surgery, and he expects to be out several weeks after suffering a right hand injury. So we will definitely be keeping an eye out here on Vegas Insider to see how that impacts their matchup with the Bengals. And it looks like we're going to be getting another rush here at quarterback for at least the next few weeks, unless they bring some veteran in here. Dallas always loves those flashy names. I don't know who's available on the market That would be interesting. Maybe Cam Newton, huh? Jerry Jones loves to make a splash. So, Patrick, your initial thoughts on what we just heard there coming out of Dallas, and what do you expect to happen with the line here?
Right, and I knew what you were going to say as soon as you started going into that, because my phone started beeping about, hey, it looks like Dak Prescott's going to be out. So first off, my guess would be that this game is, and I can even check in on a couple of apps. So my guess would be this game is coming off the board like everywhere, probably. Again, making the Superbooks move look even more prescient to just not, when these teams are playing in Sunday Night Football, to not have their next week's game on the board, until they see how those games flesh out. And I'm scrolling through this right now, and you know what? I see what's happening when I'm refreshing. I'm going back to week 1, and I'm like, where's week 2? But my first thought there, first blush, obviously that's not good for a team that needs to win next week. And Cincinnati is going to be looking to, is going to need a win next week as well. And so I'm just scrolling through. I'm looking at some of the numbers on week 2 here, and like I said, I see on the odds screen for Vegas Insider, a 1.5. There's still some 2.5, but I gotta bet that those Cowboys 2.5. Those aren't going to stay that way. There's no way. They're more than likely. I'm guessing this game is off the board at most books, and in fact, while we've got, we're just going to look. I mean, we can do this.
Yeah,
it's
we can
live,
do
right?
a quick scan. That's exactly what we're here to do.
We're gonna take a look at this real quick, and
while you're looking, I'll encourage our audience to rush to your app as soon as you can and see if you can get the Bengals at a good number before this comes down. Because if the Cowboys are without Dak Prescott in this one, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals are coming in looking for revenge, they're going to destroy the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be a blowout victory in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking right now at the Caesars app, among others, and it is off. So and it'll stay off while they reassess. Might not go back up to tomorrow morning. I know it's not going to go back up until tomorrow morning at Superbook. So that's obviously you can't overstate the loss of your starting quarterback, but especially for a team that really struggled to put up points tonight. Now they got Cincinnati coming, and the defending AFC champs, and needing a win as well. This is going to be a tough spot for Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves, where the bookmakers go with this. I don't know if they'll make adjustments tonight, but they'll certainly have made adjustments by morning. And I don't think it's going to be Cowboys -2 anymore. I assume this jumps the fence pretty quickly, and it'll be interesting to see just how far it jumps the fence.
How soon before we see Sean Payton as next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys odds getting to about like -860?
Yeah, that's a
when
great
is that
point.
going to happen?
That's a great point. The rumors for it, I'm sure, are already happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if a book in the global market, if you know what I mean, maybe even has a prop bet for that. So, that's that'll be interesting. And again, as you announced that breaking news on Dak Prescott, I was just double checking some things on this Vikings Eagles game. Like I said, or I'm sorry, it was the were we talking Vikings Eagles or
yes, Vikings Eagles?
Yeah, I thought that's what it was. Like as John said, it was tough to going back and forth between 2.5 and 3 on Eagles, open 3, but in looking at the odds on Vegas Insider's odds page, it looks like the Vikes at some spots are, they're +3, but juiced to around -120 at a spot or two. So, and John said some of the early money came in on the Vikings. So if you want to get that +3, you might want to try to get in. If you like what you saw from the Vikes today, and you think they're good for next week, you might want to get on that +3 early, because the early indicators are that it might go to 2.5.
All right, so what about Monday Night Football here? We got the Broncos as 6.5-point favorites. Your Broncos heading to Seattle for the homecoming game here. And we're looking at an over-under at the moment of 44. So that's gone up a few points here. What are you thinking, Patrick? Are your boys going to come out and do work here? Are we going to get a close one that shouldn't be close? So what do we learn tomorrow night about your team?
Right. Well, first off, look, if you wanted the Broncos against the spread, you needed to get in well before now. You could have had this at a much better number as it made its way over these last couple. These numbers for week one have all been up for months. You could have gotten a much better number than 6.5, or if it gets to 7 or what have you. The books are definitely going to be rooting for the Seahawks. They would love a Seahawks outright win because the Broncos, for whatever, there was a lot of damage done today to parlays, moneyline parlays, and teasers by way of some of these outcomes. But whatever survived made it through the Bucs tonight, was, probably ran through the Buccaneers tonight at most books, parlays and moneyline parlays. And then tomorrow, parlays, moneyline parlays, and teasers with the Broncos. It's at, are they 6.5 right now? Is that right? Those are going to be live to Denver for sure. So they're going to want Seattle to at least cover. And John Murray even told me this evening that, they had a pretty good Sunday. The Bucs got some back for the public. They took a good ding on the Bucs, as probably most books did. But he said, we're going to need Seattle pretty big on Monday Night Football. So don't be surprised if a significant amount more money comes in on Denver from the public, who's not getting the best of the number, but they may come in anyway. What I would advise is if you, look, I'm a Broncos fan. I'm not betting them. But if you really feel like you got to bet the Broncos tomorrow, then on a straight bet, then what I would say is hope that Seattle gets the ball first. Not necessarily wins the toss, but gets the ball first and goes down and scores. Field goal or touchdown. Then jump in and get Denver at a better number. I think Denver wins that game, but jump in and get Denver at a better number. So that's what I would do. I think the value is shot from that number. I think it's probably higher than it ought to be. Maybe Denver goes in and just drums them. Who knows? But this is an emotional game for Seattle too. I know it's Russell Wilson going back to face his former team, but it's his former team. Like, they want to shine at home, 12th man, all that. I want no part of laying 6.5.
So before we look at a few games to close things out here, we have Seth Lockard, one of our friends who checks in on a lot of our broadcasts here on Vegas Insider, checking in on YouTube. He says, Lions backdoor covering and Commanders W, helping me sleep peacefully. So Seth having a nice Sunday on his betting apps, and we hope you guys are all doing the same here. Give us a follow on Twitter. Why don't you guys go ahead and do that before we hit a few games on the back end here at Vegas Insider. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can go watch us on Twitter right now at the same time. Double the views for the opening line report here for week 2 of the NFL. Go ahead and follow us at Vegas Insider, and you get all our great content all week long. Football is the best time of year to be checking in with us. So a line that I saw that caught my eye tonight when I was putting this together, Falcons are in LA. Rams are 11.5 point favorites here. The over-under at 47.5. And yes, I know the Saints are not the Rams, but the Falcons impressed me with what they did with their offense today. Cordero Patterson is a problem. And we knew he was a problem last year. He was this incredible multi-tool weapon. It was like they unlocked him in a way that he has never been unlocked before. We kind of all thought that Belichick had figured out how to use Cordero Patterson. And then it was like, no, Arthur Smith really figured out how to use him. And he had a fantastic day against that Saints defense. So, look, the Rams got beat up on and a little bit exposed, I think, in the secondary against the Bills. I could see the Falcons going out and keeping this thing competitive in Los Angeles next week. So 11.5, a really big number. And again, I know the Falcons are no world beaters here, but that's a big number for the Rams to cover, especially when Stafford didn't look 100%. I don't know what's going on with that arm. I think there's something to Allen Robinson not having a lot of targets, a lot of stuff underneath the defense, a lot of tight end targets. Cooper Kupp getting thrown to a bunch, running backs getting thrown to a bunch. I think that elbow's not 100% healthy. That's just me just reading the tea leaves. I don't know. That's a big number. What do you think?
Well, it is a big number, and I think this game is a little bit fascinating, and depending on where you stand on what you think about that number, I'm not going to tell anybody, who to bet, but there is a range on this number. I'm looking at WinBet right now on my app, 12. I'm looking at Superbook on my app, 10.5. So
Wow.
there's a nice little range there that's available. And as you look at Vegas Insider's odds page, you can see it as well. Just scroll back down and get to that game. But yeah, you're seeing 11 opener, 12. You're seeing 12s, 11.5s, a couple of 11s. But then, like I said, the 12 is win bet. So all the way out to 12. That doesn't seem like a bad number to get with the Falcons right now. I would probably take that. I think that's just way too many points at this point. Down to a low of 10.5 at the Superbook. If you think the Rams are going to bounce back from that bashing they took in the second half against the Buffalo Bills. So, a little bit of a disparity among the books early in the week on this game. I'm with you. I think it's too many points. I don't, if you say I have to bet it, well, then I'd be trying to get on WinBet and get 12 right now. But otherwise I would probably still just kind of sit tight, see if wherever your book of choice is, see if they get up to 12, see if the public jumps on the Rams, thinking that the Super Bowl champs will bounce back. But it's a lot of points. I would definitely be leaning toward the double-digit dog here.
Seth, who's watching us on YouTube, says Falcons plus 11.5. Take it now before it goes under 10. And he says over 47.5, probably free as well. I don't know about the total there, but I'm with you, Seth. I am looking at plus 11.5 right now. I'm going to check out Sportsbook RI right after we wrap here. And another one I wanted to hit with you, Patrick, before we go. And if there's any other games or updates you want to throw in at the end, feel free. I saw the Colts here as a 4-point favorite against the Jaguars, the over-under at 45.5. And, the Texans did their thing today. And I think I said it either on this broadcast or on a podcast or somewhere. Texans are scrappy. I think the Texans are better than people think. I think Davis Mills is better than people realize. He's got a long neck. I think that helps him see over the line of scrimmage. So I think the Colts played a Texans team that's another situation where the Texans might be a little better than we realize. That number might have been too big. We get the weird tie in week 1, which I love, by the way. I love ties. Whenever ties happen, I think it's fantastic because they're so weird and quirky. The fact that they exist, I want to see them. So we got the Colts here, and not huge favorites over a Jaguars team that I think kind of got exposed a little bit in week 1 against a Commanders team that I'm not all that too thrilled about. So I think that this is a spot that I'm going to be looking at here. I think the Colts are going to see a lot of money in week 2.
Oh, they probably will, but it seems both, nobody's pointed either direction early on. I'm seeing them on Vegas Insider's odds page. I'm seeing, consensus -4 opener. I'm seeing a bunch of books painted at -4, basically at -4 flat, maybe a couple of cents of variation here and there. The Superbook is still at -4 flat on the Colts in this. I believe they're -4 flat on the Colts. So, out of the gate, it's, if the sharp bettors feel like there's something to be had there out of the gate, they're going to bet it like they did with the Chiefs, as we discussed earlier. There was sharp play at the Superbook on the Chiefs right out of the gate at 3 flat, 3 -120. They went to 3.5. So they're, the sharp bettors, at least early on, aren't seeing anything about that Colts Jaguars line that makes them want to jump on either side. But I do think you're right. I do think the Colts are going to get some play this week. They got to bounce back, and they really should have revenge on their minds after losing at Jacksonville in the regular season finale last year to blow a guaranteed trip to the playoff. That's the thing I can't. I mean, I feel good about the Colts this season. I like their over. I like them to go to the playoffs. I threw a Super Bowl futures bet on them, not necessarily because I think they're going to get there. I like the number. And I felt like with their offensive line and with the running back and so forth, and hopefully maybe Matt Ryan having one more good season, possibly, maybe, kind of a rejuvenation thing, that if they just get in there, they just get in the tournament and get a win or two, then I'm sitting on a 25-1 ticket that maybe I can start working on, if you know what I mean. I might, hedge it or what have you. I did that with the Bengals last year and it worked out. It worked out well. I couldn't make the hedge literally until the Bengals were up 20-16 in the Super Bowl, but I made the hedge right there and I cashed. I made sure to make some money.
Smart man.
And it worked out. I got lucky, but I felt going into this season like the Colts could be that kind of team. After what I saw today, I'm not so sure, but I do think they've got some talent there, and I do think the public is going to be on the Colts this week. I would suspect they'll need the Jags I mean, the Jags coming off a loss at Washington, and and nobody thinks much of Washington really either. So, hopefully just a fluky spot and the Colts get it back together. But I think you're right. I think the public money will be backing the Colts. Not sure if it'll be enough to push that number very, much more than what it is. 4 is kind of, I don't know. We'll just have to see where it goes.
Randy Poss on YouTube sounds a lot like Randy Moss. Maybe that's just a coincidence. He said that he made money today with spread win in Lions, Steelers, Bills, Vikings, and Ravens. Wow, successful day for Randy. He just missed on Raiders plus 3.5. So hopefully that wasn't the last leg of a parlay or something. You'd be killing yourself, in the app there if that was the case. But man, Randy, good for you, man. That's a solid Sunday at the betting window. Any other games here catching your eye here, Patrick?
Well, I'll mention one more, but I'll also note I that list of I didn't catch all that list of his wins, but I did. It sounds like he followed maybe followed the tweet storm this morning. I don't know, but WinBet early this morning said the top 3 point spread decisions that they needed today were the Browns to cover, the Giants to cover, and the Lions to cover. So those were their top 3 decisions early in the day going into the early kickoffs. And they got all 3 of those. So that tells you what kind of day it has been for the books. I think, a buddy of mine that was in town for the weekend for NFL Week 1 at Mandalay Bay. I ran into him at Mandalay Bay, and he pointed out, and the reason I'm looking at my phone is I'm double checking the numbers on these, but that Dolphins-Ravens matchup is definitely interesting, and gets more interesting by way of the Week 1 results. Could be a really good game, really interesting game. And it looks like Superbook opened, I believe Superbook opened 4 and is still there. Looks like the consensus was 4, but I'm seeing a couple of 4.5s on the Ravens already. So I think that's an interesting game. And the Ravens are already up 0.5 point at a couple of different shops, including the aforementioned WinBet. It is one of the couple of shops that's already up to 4.5 on Baltimore.
Yeah, I was going to say that's my stay away spot. That's a number that, because the Ravens looked great this week, right? But they're playing the Jets, and the Dolphins took care of business against the Patriots, but we all kind of think the Patriots might stink, right? So
a lot of people do. Yes.
Do we know who either of these teams actually are? I don't know. I feel like the Ravens are better, but are they 4 points better than the Dolphins? Right. I don't know. I could see this one kind of going either. This is a huge stay away spot for me. But it's going to be an intriguing matchup. And by the way, Randy checking back in saying, no parlay loss for me. There you go. You're smart. You're a better man than I love the parlay. Come on. Parlays are fun. All right. So that's going to do it for the Week 2 edition here of the opening line report. Patrick, any final thoughts before we say goodnight and say good morning to some who are watching this tomorrow morning as they get their bet slips ready for Week 2?
Absolutely. Well, just keep an eye on the numbers in the morning, see what happens with that Cowboys-Bengals game. It's going to be interesting. There's going to obviously be a significant shift in that line. There's no question when it goes back up. And look, on this overall, generally speaking, was a really good weekend for the books, college and NFL. Let's hope we can swing that pendulum. And Tommy and I hope that TommyFreezePops here and I hope that through our opening line report, we can help get you engaged in the following week's games in a way that's helpful to you in deciding how you want to go forward and hopefully make next week a better week on our side of the counter than it was this weekend.
I hope you guys had some success this Sunday, and we're always looking to grow, right? We want you to have even more success. So this is why we're here. We're here to help. Tweet at us throughout the week. Listen to our podcasts on the Vegas Insider podcast feed. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/VegasInsiderTV. Follow us on all the Twitter feeds. Do what you need to do to get our content and make money. That's why we do this thing, right? It's for fun and it's to make a little cash so you can go to Chili's and maybe afford a triple dipper instead of just the chips and salsa, right, Patrick? I mean, what's your go-to meal at Chili's?
Hashtag Chili's money. I like the chicken bacon ranch quesadilla except without the ranch. I just love the chicken and bacon together. The chicken bacon ranch quesadilla is pretty doggone good, and you can't go wrong with their chips and salsa. Their salsa is addicting. It's like the crack of salsa of quick casual salsas. It's the crack of quick casual salsa. And I just point out, and Tommy, you're probably going to point this out in just a moment, but again, this will be every Sunday night, generally around the time Sunday Night Football ends, unless Sunday Night Football gets way out of hand. Maybe we'll jump in a little bit earlier because we know this is late on the East Coast. It's late for most of the country. It's only a little after 9 o'clock here for me, thankfully. But every Sunday night, we will have your opening line report live stream, talking early insights and information from respected odds makers on the opening numbers and early action. So make sure you check us out every week around this time.
You nailed it. That's a big market tease right there, Patrick. You teased ahead for next week, so that's why we pay you the big bucks. So that's going to do it for the Week 2 odds. I'm going to go to bed, and you guys will hear me on Tom and Tom tomorrow morning. This is the football grind, man. We stay up late Sunday. We get up early to record the pod because we need to bring you guys that winning content. So that's going to do it for me, TommyFreezePops. That's my man, Patrick Everson, and we will talk to you guys next Sunday night here on Twitter and on YouTube. Bye, guys.